Good evening, everybody, from Angel's Haven. I spent today at TinyFest, California, and I wanted to spend a minute or two telling you about some of the things that I learned when I was there. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about a new acquisition that I have here at Angel's Haven. Now, as many of you know, I do not have a solar setup here, and that's something that I will need to have if and when I go off-grid. So one of the things that I did while I was at TinyFest was talk to a solar company about what it might cost to go off-grid. Now, this company would design and install a solar system that would enable me to power my lights and what else? My refrigerator with electricity generated by the sun. What they indicated was that it is better if you don't heat with electricity and try to be solar. I do heat with electricity. If I were to go solar, according to this gentleman, I would need to switch to propane heat. I run my hot water and my cooking with propane now, so it would not be hard to add a propane heater. It does not take much to heat a tiny space. I could have a wood-burning stove, but I would have to install a chimney, which I don't currently have. So probably if I went solar, I would convert to propane heat. This gentleman said that his system for my square footage would run around $5,000 installed in Santa Rosa, California. That means I would have to drive Angel's Haven to Santa Rosa to get it installed. I think that I probably could buy a solar kit for maybe half that. And so I probably will not use this company. I'll either look for a less expensive company or I will just start saving my pennies and buy a solar kit. I also looked at manufactured tiny homes to get ideas about storage, design, and layout to see if I wanted to make any modifications based on what I saw. I felt as though most of the tiny houses were laid out very similarly to mine. I did, however, meet a husband and wife team who are doing design drawer pullouts and cabinet pullouts. And if you've watched my videos, you know that I have a cabinet in the corner by the stove, which is very hard to use because the stove covers half of the opening. He showed me a system that he designs and that his company builds, which would enable me to have sliding drawers which there would be two sets. The first set, upper and lower, would slide out, and the second set would slide forward from the back, and then I could reach everything that's stored in the back of that cupboard. I told him basically what I had. I drew him a little sketch. He said he could design, build, and install it on site for about $900. Now that's not a lot of money. It is right now because I'm not working, but it isn't a lot of money for a custom-made cabinet insert. I don't know that I will do that. It seems a little frivolous to me, but it's good to know that if I had $900 I wanted to put into being able to better use that cabinet, I could do it. So I also volunteered at the model home that Park Delta Bay has been had been displaying here and will be displaying here. It's made by a company called Escape, which is in Wisconsin. The unit that we showed was 276 square feet. It was on an 8.5 by 30 trailer, and it was 13 feet tall. It had 2 lofts, which were traditional sleeping lofts. One had room for a twin bed, and one had room for a queen bed. This that house had the major sleeping loft, the main sleeping loft, was 4 foot 4 inches in height, and the area under it, which would be for the living area, was over 6 feet tall. We had several very tall visitors, and they were able to stand up in that area. It had air conditioning. It had, I think it had a flush toilet, but there was an option for composting for additional money. It had big picture windows with beautiful blinds on them. They were not decorative blinds. They were functional, and they were very nice. And it had the Japanese burn treatment on the outside of the tiny house, which was very lovely. And as presented, it cost $68,000. Frankly, that's a pretty good price for what I saw. It is more than I paid, but it's fancier than what I have, bigger than what I have, and it has air conditioning. So Escape, that's the company. That tiny home will be back at Park Delta Bay after the California TinyFest, and I'm going to ask the owner of the park if I can do a tour of it for my YouTube channel. And if he says yes, then I'll post it. So the California TinyFest was 2.5 days, Friday evening, all day today, and all day tomorrow. I just went for about 6 hours today. I met a lot of people, and I had a couple people come up to me and say, "Oh, you're famous! I saw you on TV!" And I had forgotten about that interview, so that was kind of cool. I talked to a lot of people. I gave out my YouTube channel information to a lot of people. I wish I had business cards for it. I kind of thought about that later. But it was a lot of fun. So it's we're 8 minutes into this video. I don't want to be too long. I want to show you what I have. And there it is right there. So many of you know that I did not get air conditioning in Angel's Haven. I do not like air conditioning. I have a neurological malfunction. Very cold air makes my nerves very painful, frankly. I have to cover up when I'm in air conditioning. It gets hot here for a couple of weeks. And I probably would not run air conditioning if I had it. So what I decided to do after a lot of research, reading on tiny house websites, reading reviews, reading manufacturer information, and basically spending the last 6 months intermittently reading everything I could, I got an evaporative cooler. Now, several people that live in the park have said, "Oh, it's far too humid here for an evaporative cooler," and they're not correct. I have a map here. I'm going to reference it so I don't get this wrong. The one that I chose is a Honeywell, and Honeywell distributed a map. Actually, there are a couple of companies that make these and are very reputable, but I felt Honeywell's map of where you could use an evaporative cooler was the most honest. It's statistics and percentages of humidity corresponded with what I found on national weather websites. So the other manufacturers made it seem like their units could be used in a bigger area. I felt like, and they did that by underplaying the amount of humidity that you have, and that's the determinant factor. So the way an evaporative cooler works, you put water in it, and there's an ice. There's a compartment for water and a compartment for ice, and there's a honeycomb pad, and the evaporative cooler draws air from your house, warm air, forces that warm air through the water and the ice, and it comes out as cool, somewhat misty air, which is why you don't want to use it in a humid climate. You don't close the house up when you use an evaporative cooler. You keep the windows open. And that's another important thing for me. When I am in a house that's closed and cold, my asthma is triggered. I don't really know why. That's just what happens. So anyway, Honeywell has a map, and I'm going to hold it up so you can see. Oh, it's backwards. Oh, because this is a backwards camera. I don't really understand how those things work. Let me just tell you what it says. It says in areas with humidity that averages between 26 and 25%, you can use the evaporative cooler either indoor or outdoor. And of course, if it's lower than that, you can use it indoor and outdoor. They put these things like on patios just to cool down the air when you're out there. And my area, which is the Central Valley in California, is depicted on their map as being in the 26 to 45% average humidity and suitable for using evaporative coolers both indoor and outdoor. Some of the other companies made it seem like our humidity was lower than 26% on the average, but again, I looked at the official sites, and it's more in that 25 to 40 range. And so I got an evaporative cooler. The one I got it's a Honeywell, and the one that I got, and if I can figure out how to do this, I'll put the information in the comments. But the one that I got on the internet said it could do on the average 300 square feet. Now, when I got it, the box said 278 square feet. It's kind of an odd number. I wanted to get towards something that could handle more square feet than I have, because I have a high house. The general idea of these is that you use them in a room. And so the size that I got could be used for a large room, but most large rooms are not 12 feet tall. If you have 12 feet ceilings, I'm jealous, because my house at Kansas City did not have 12-foot ceilings, but Angels Haven does. So I bumped up the square foot measurement a little bit to accommodate the high ceilings. Now, as you can see, it is sitting in a spot where I used to have a chair. I was a little, I didn't understand the footprint of the unit that I chose. I was looking at another unit. In fact, I looked at 500 ceiling fans. Literally, I looked at about 50 evaporative coolers over the last few months. I thought about having two small ones, putting one up in the guest loft, putting one on the first floor. I mean, I went through all these configurations, and I finally picked this one. It has a very large footprint. I had to move some things that were in a cabinet so that I could put the little sewing chair that was there, tuck it away, and tuck away the little rattan stool that I have. So I had to do a lot of moving, which sort of obviated or negated the efficacy of all the moving I did last week. But this will fit in one of the compartments of my outside storage cabinet, and so I will keep it in the house for late June, July, and early August when the Central Valley has its hotter weeks. And then when we start to cool off again, I'll put it in the storage cupboard. To do that, I'm going to have to get rid of some of my stuff that's in storage, my storage cupboard. But I have stuff in there I don't need. I have empty boxes, that sort of thing. So that's tomorrow's project. And I promised Dr. Carr's mysterious spouse that I would do a little video about the outside storage cupboard, so I will do that tomorrow. So, evaporative cooler and California TinyFest were the subjects for today. I hope you've learned a little bit, and thank you for spending a minute of my tiny life with me. I'll see you next time.